The home study is something of a misnomer because many people assume that the sole focus of the home study is the social worker coming to your home and seeing if any dust bunnies are in the corners of your house. I would recommend that your home be neat, but don't polish it to a shine such that it feels unreal. We're not really looking for that. The part of the home study that involves coming to your home generally is looking for issues related to safety, and we give you a checklist ahead of time of those areas that we look at so that it's not a secret. And if we notice something that you haven't checked before, then we'll ask you to do something about that, and you can send us a picture showing that you put that baby gate up or some other remedy, or we can come back and see it in person. But it's not a pass-fail test, and it's not something that you should give a great deal of worry about. Just, we are working together to find that your home is safe and suitable for a child. If you have any questions about your eligibility to get approved based on where you live, let us know. Let's talk about it with you, and we can be helpful. But the largest part of a home study has nothing to do with the house or apartment or condominium in which you live. It has to do with the home of the heart. The home study social worker meets with each of you, if you're a couple or if you're single, with you, and gets to know you. In the first visit, if you're a couple, they ask questions about your relationship, how you came together, and your journey to making the decision about adoption. For some couples, it's simply a natural outgrowth of their interest. They would like to adopt a child. For many, if not most families, it is a decision that they come to after having dealt with infertility for some short or longer period of time. And so in that first meeting, we talk a little bit about how you came to consider adoption and a little bit about your relationship. In the second meeting, the home study social worker will meet with each of you separately if you're a couple, as well as some time together as a couple. And when meeting with each of you individually, the focus is to get to know you and to find out a little bit more about your personal history. And the home study social worker is listening for any subjects or themes that might relate to adoption that might be helpful to highlight, point out, encourage you to do some thinking about, or even some studying about. I could name one example might be if somebody had a step parent and they had some experience with some of the issues of whether that person felt like a full parent to them and whether or not there were conflicted loyalties in the family as between a biological parent and a step parent, that even though that is not adoption related per se, it has sort of the flavor of some of the subjects that can come up in a family where there's an adoption. And so the home study social worker is listening for your ability to think about that and talk about it, so that when the child someday says, did I grow in your tummy? You don't say, oh, well, time for dinner now. Instead, you're receptive and able to talk about the stuff that may not be so easy to talk about. If you've had prior relationships or prior marriages, in fact, this isn't something that you're judged for. What we're listening for is, what did you learn from that relationship? What do you bring forward into the relationship you're in now? What lessons do you feel you learned that you hope you can share in some important way with your child so that they learn about developing relationships in the course of their life? So we're always listening for the teachable moment, and it might be a moment where you're teaching your child, where you're teaching each other, where you're just learning for yourself. But it's always about growth and trying to see how we can work with you to help you feel like you have the best foundation under you to move forward in the adoption process and in the process of being an adoptive parent. In a third meeting, there might be conversation about what kind of adoption you want to experience. A number of years ago, I remember a family was seeking a domestic adoption, and then they became aware that they weren't comfortable having a lot of contact with biological parents. They just weren't open to having post-placement contact with them as well. And they came to the decision that maybe they were more appropriate for international adoption. I tend to think that you're dealing with birth parents, whether you're adopting domestically or internationally. It's just that you may or may not be able to talk with them. But this was the decision that they made. And so that was a right decision for them, that they wanted to proceed internationally because some aspect of international wasn't a good fit for, domestic was not a good fit for them. In most cases, people aren't shifting gears quite to that degree. But in the context of a home study, they're talking about the age of the child that they're open to, whether there are any health conditions, mental health conditions, or drug or alcohol exposures that they would or would not feel comfortable with. We, at this point in the adoption process, don't specify as to gender because ultrasounds aren't invariably accurate, and most women do not have amniocentesis. With regard to race of the child, we encourage everybody to learn a little bit about transracial adoption because at its heart is the subject of differences, and how do you honor the unique qualities that a child has while also owning the unique qualities that you have as parents. So learning about transracial adoption can be quite helpful, but in the course of the home study, we're also looking to hear from you what ethnicity child you would be open to welcoming into your family. And I hope to meet with each prospective adoptive family who would like to work with our program. And at that time, I will give you the benefit of the educational materials that we are aware of that you could explore. Some are online, some are working with a social worker, some are programs and seminars and workshops and conferences and online tutorials. But there's a wealth of opportunities for you to examine your own attitudes. Am I open to a child of such and such heritage? And would a child of such and such heritage have a good experience in our family, in our extended family, in our community, the school system, and so forth? So these are important questions to examine. We encourage you to voice your concerns out loud, your worries, the little small thoughts that feel like maybe you shouldn't say this or that, because we're here to help you, and we're trying to help you figure out how to have the most successful and satisfying experiences possible in adopting your child. A fourth meeting would sometimes be an overview of or summarizing of the various themes that have been discussed in the earlier meetings, and maybe an opportunity to talk about some of the subjects that you have been reading more about or watching seminars on. So there might be some discussion about how to talk with children about adoption and so forth. I've known a lot of some adoptive parents who have had training on openness, but then when the child's in their family, it's like they may step backwards and not talk with their child about adoption until the child is much older, even despite the education about how helpful it can be to a child. So if you find yourself in that situation, don't hesitate to call us up. Just be candid. We're trying to help you. We'll try to figure out how to help you move forward in a sort of more transparent way with the child whenever you need that. But in the home study, we're trying to give you that foundation of education so that you will have the fewest bumps and wrinkles in the years ahead and have the most loving, satisfying, and joyful experience that you possibly can have.